Yeah, g'day, it's Charlie ZL2CTM. Just thought I'd provide a bit of an update on some transmitting tests I've been doing with this radio here. So just a bit of a recap. Nothing much has changed since the last video essentially. We've still got the two NE5 or 612 that are providing the two mixing devices. And on the transmit side, what we're doing now is we're taking the output from this mixer here, feeding it through a bandpass filter. Let's come down here, through this bandpass filter here, through a pre-driver, which is again two J310s, and then across into the linear power amplifier here. The output of which is going through a low-pass filter, which really starts to attenuate around sort of that 19 to 20 megahertz. Noting that this at the moment is a 20 meter radio, so sitting on 14 megs. So what I thought I'd just do there is we'll just bring the scope into view, and we'll key. And if you can sort of see there, that's just playing an audio file through the microphone and being picked up on a radio here in the shack. This here is transmitting into a dummy load, and there's a dummy load on the other radio. So that's not too far off. Let me just turn this one off as well. So getting back to the radio down here, what I've found out that seems to be the best drive for the microphone in this microphone amplifier over here through this coupling capacitor is 40 millivolts peak to peak. So 40 millivolts peak to peak at the output of this microphone amplifier seems to drive this mixer quite well, and I don't seem to have any clipping as we saw there in the oscilloscope picture. So that's pretty good. I have been on air with this over the last few nights, and been doing some tests with a local ham, and he's essentially said that it's a good copy. The only comment, if anything, is this microphone here is slightly on the high frequency side, which doesn't really, I guess, surprise me a little bit, because it's not a proper microphone element. But that's fine, because the size of this and the weight of this is really ideal for the tramping trips. So what I did do is I did subtly change the audio filter on the output of that mic amp and some of the biasing, just to increase and boost some of the low frequencies, which has made a small difference here, which is good. What I do want to do now, this is currently on 20 meters, and I've basically decided that I'm going to go away from 20 meters and I'm going to go back to 80 meters. I find here in New Zealand the 80 meter band is more active for what I want to do than the 20 meter band. So the plan now will be to modify this. So we'll redo the bandpass filters, the receive and the transmit bandpass filters, and we'll look to retune things. Not so much on this side, but certainly over here, for 80 meters. And what I also want to do is I want to try using one of these. It's a little buck converter. The spec sheet for that has 12 volts in and an output between 12 and 35 volts. So what I want to try and do there is just have a slightly greater VCC, or supply voltage, for the power amp, just to increase the power there on transmit. So I'm going to try that one there. Seems to output quite a clean DC, so that's good, and it's only going to be used on transmit anyway, so I'll only power it on transmit, so there shouldn't be any issues with, at least on receive, any noise getting through, and we'll just double check that on transmit. I'm not inducing anything onto the audio, but my initial tests before doesn't look too bad. And then I'll have a bit of a play around with this again. It's a it's an IRF 510 linear amplifier, which seems to be quite a common one around. And I'll have another play with that one. That's set up through the 10-term pot there to have a quiescent drive of quiescent current through that of 100 milliamps. So I might play around with that one and just see what's better, the JBot style linear amplifier or this. Just make sure I've got enough drive for that. So I understand these the RF 510 seems to like the high voltages, so it's not so good at 12 volts. But I think when it's paired with this, and I get this up to, say, pick a number, 20 volts maybe, then this might actually start to perform quite well. So that'll be part and parcel of the experiments. This is the battery pack I take tramping with me, so it outputs both 12 volts and 5 volts, but I only ever use the 5 volt side, and that's fixed at 12 volts, so I need something just to boost up that supply rail going to the amplifier. So that's going to be part and parcel of the next lot of experiments. Here's another experiment which was playing around with a push-pull amplifier using two BD139s. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. It wasn't overly huge amounts of power, but just playing around with different types of amplifiers and see how they get on. So that's where we're at. So like I say, I think time now to essentially tear this down, and I'm pretty happy with the receive side. It's working really remarkably well, and haven't had any problems at all with some of the local hams here. The other night I was listening to a local guy, literally 2 kilometers down the road, and he was transmitting 600 watts. And sure, I'm not running any AGC on this, so I had to crank down the old volume. But even with the volume cranked down, he was perfectly readable. There was no overdriving that I could tell on either of the mixers there. So that was actually quite pleasing. So the dynamic range there seems to be quite good. The only other challenge now with going to 80 meters will be the need to change my antenna for tramping. In the past, well, not in the past, I simply don't have the real estate in a lot of the huts we go to string up a full half-wave dipole at 80 meters. So I'll have to start playing around with an end-fed antenna. So I might sort of call upon and do some review on Alpha 5 Sierra Tango's website, and I know he's had a lot of success with end-fed antennas with a very simple coupler. So I might sort of look at the same. He's simply got a simple coupler there with the small sort of transistor style type variable capacitor there, and a simple toroid type inductor. So I might sort of play around with the T68-2, which I think will be quite ideal for 3.5 megs or for the 80 meter band. So we'll see if we can get that done right, and then hopefully I'll be able to get a relatively short-ish antenna running. It won't be overly efficient, but at least I'll be able to sort of squeeze into some of the sites that we go to while I'm out in the bush. Anyway, so that's just a brief update on the transmit tests. Like I say, really happy with the way these mixers are going, and the overall performance. It's pretty good, and just a matter of now of changing the frequency band and having a bit of a play around. For interest's sake, this is not being used. That was 2 stages of linear amplification leading up into that, but I've sort of bypassed that and it's going straight from this amplifier down here. But I was just using the VCC rail there just to link things up. Anyway, so I'll leave it there, and we will do some more experiments, and I will catch you up later on. Thanks very much, and 73s.